my name's Chris, this is the Chamael Corp, and today I'm back on my bullshit. So, last we left off, I had everything from the waist up printed. Now that I'm starting to think from the waist down, my mind naturally went to, what kind of a firearm is my Mandalorian going to have? And I think I decided on the DL-44. So we're going to talk about this, which I did print and make, as well as my harness, or my blaster belt that I'm going to be using right after this. Look, before we go any further, we're going to take a second and we are going to thank Tony for supporting us on Patreon. I invite you to hit the description, check out that Patreon page, look at the different tiers and the perks that we offer. There are some tangible perks, and there are also some perks that allow you to see episodes sooner, allows you to see some behind-the-scenes content that won't be publicly visible. So the link is in the description, and please, I encourage you to check it out. Let's be honest. Han Solo's look is iconic, right? Low-slung blaster, scoundrel that does whatever he wants. Like, just from the first time you see him, you're like, that guy. Yes. And I have loved that look for years. And in fact, I printed my very own Han Solo blaster just a year ago. And I'm going to walk you through some of that a little bit, and also the holster. But as I was sitting here and thinking about, man, what do I want my Mandalorian to really look like? I kept coming back to the DL-44. You know, that low-slung, gunslinger type, right? And to the same extent, right, you get that with the Mandalorian. And just that kind of iconic imagery is something that I kind of want to capture, recreate, but also have it be a little bit different and make it my own. So I'm going to kind of give you a tour of what I did with the DL-44, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the holster that I found on Amazon. So we will do that. Okay, here is the blaster. Again, this is entirely 3D printed, except for the hardware. I actually used screws and some bolts in places that you can kind of see if we get in a little closer. My goal was to make this similar to what we see Han Solo using, but also not 100% accurate, right? So I did some different paint texturing here. I tried to do some chipped paint effects and weathering and things like that, and I think you can really kind of see that here, right? The scope, I did put a graphic inside, and I do have both of those closed off. I thought the flash suppressor actually turned out really well. And what I actually did was behind the handles and then in the body, there were some hollow spots in the model. So I put metal in there, some old nuts and bolts, some washers, things like that, and then dumped some liquid nails in there to solidify everything before closing everything up and doing all my sanding and painting and things like that. So I do love how, and if we get really close you can kind of see, but like these are not wood, obviously these are not wood. I just used I painted them base, and then I did some weathering and some black wash and things like that. But I enjoyed how the printer did leave these. They do kind of resemble kind of a wood grain effect. So overall, I'm really happy with this. I think it's going to be great. But it is not complete without the holster. So why don't we check that out? Okay, so as you can see, this comes in 3 parts. Now you've got the main belt, you've got the holster piece, and then you've got this buckle that attaches to the back. This is supposed to be the front. We do have these pouches with space for, Solo's droid collar, and then we do have these in here. Obviously, if you look there and you look here, we obviously have some folds and some creases that I'm going to have to work out. I'm not sure if a warm iron or just like putting something in there to fill them out is going to do the trick, but we'll kind of experiment with that. Another thing, if you notice on the back of this buckle, there's a little knob right here, and the thought is, when you're attaching things, that this is going to kind of fit in there and do that. However, because of how this is oriented, this one will go here, and then this one is actually going to flip and go over here for the back of the belt, right? This is going to have to be shaved down because it actually would hit this metal piece here. So I'm going to take a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade, and I'm going to cut this down on both sides, and I'm going to file them down so they actually will hang the way they're supposed to. Another thing I'm going to do, the intent here, I think, is that you thread, whatever you're going to call it, you thread this belt through, and then you've got holes that, if I can find one of them one-handed, there we go, pop through like that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to bend this over. I'm going to trim this here when I get it sized correctly, and I'm going to put 2 snaps right there. So that way it's sized correctly, it's secure, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So all I've got to do to put this on is just snap it together. And then lastly, obviously it needs to be weathered. This is actually really good for the price I paid. It was just around $50. You can see the blaster fits. It's got the leg strap, and it just needs to look worn. It's going to need to look like it's been out in the field, it's been used. So definitely some weathering and some wearing are going to happen here. And I'm also going to have to find or design and print some things to fit in these pouches, just to kind of give it that completed look. So this is going to be kind of the entire belt ensemble. So the only question I have is whether I'm going to have it more low slung like Solo, or is it going to be a little bit tighter and more on the waist. And then lastly, with this right here, 'cause that's going to really obstruct any thigh armor that would go there. So do I need to modify some thigh armor for my right thigh, or does that right thigh just not have any? So that's something else to consider. The blaster, the holster, definitely the direction I want to go. Clearly I need to do some work on the holster. Not only does it need some weathering, but it also needs a little bit of modification, right? So we'll have a video documenting those steps and how I do that. In the meantime, would love if you would sound off in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. If you've done anything like this, especially working with leather or faux leather, what are your recommendations for things like weathering? Also, please, if you enjoyed this, hit the like button. The bell notification will let you know when we post new content, which we try to do every week. And lastly, if you haven't, hit that subscribe button. We would enjoy having you along for the ride. I think we've got some cool stuff coming up between the Mandalorian build and the basement build. If you haven't checked out the basement build, highly recommend that as well. So thank you for your time. We will see you next time. And until then, keep creating.